Thank you for joining us today on our second episode of Release the Wolf. I'm Chase the Wolf, here to talk to you about how to shed that sheep's clothing and become the inner wolf that we know you should and can be. It's time to be a part of the pack and lead America to a better future. On today's episode of Release the Wolf, we're going to cover some really interesting articles. We're going to start with obviously one of the biggest ones in the news, the North Korea summit, moving on to a little bit about that scumbag, Harry Weinstein, and then we're going to top it off with some tech news that we're actually using to replace a lot of culture and political stuff because it's so important that we have two drastic articles. One where somebody might be spying on you, and the other one that might cause you to not have internet anymore. Kind of important. But before we start, please subscribe. We need subscribers really bad, and we love them. We need to get monetized so that we can make money. And if we can make money, we can bring you more shows. And we can bring you more shows, they'll have better quality. So start now by just hitting that button right there. Hit that subscribe button for me. Come on, do it. Okay, we're going to go ahead and move on. We're going to go ahead and start the episode today about North Korea and the summit. Probably one of the most important things you've heard recently or haven't heard because it is important to talk about. Basically, what it comes down to is if you haven't listened to the whole story, North Korea, Kim Jong-un was willing to go to trade deal talks or denuclearization talks, however you want to look at it, with Trump in an effort to bring their country to a more civilized, peaceful nation. Well, a few days ago, their testing site decided to collapse upon itself or blow up or schedule demolition, if you believe what some people are saying. But overall, their nuclear site goes down the drain, and then they start talking crap to America. They're like, hey, we're probably going to back out of the summit unless you start offering us more stuff. And Trump was kind of the cause of this because people started saying, hey, dude, if you actually make this happen with the North Koreans, you're going to be looking at a Nobel Peace Prize. And of course, Trump let that go to his head and he started talking about it. He's like, oh, I'm going to win a peace prize if this goes down. I'm going to win 8 Nobel Peace Prizes. I'm going to be the best. And so Kim Jong-un thinks he has some leverage and goes, well, I'm not going to bring it to the table. What are you going to do? What are you going to do? Well, Trump decides to be a strong-armed gorilla and basically stands up and says, I'm going to cancel the summit. Screw you. This made the media go crazy. Almost everybody had an opinion about how stupid an idea this was. How dare he do this? It just legitimizes the national regime of the North Korea. It just legitimizes a terrorist, blah, blah, blah. Let's be clear. It worked out perfectly. Because now, hours later, the North Koreans are like, hey, we are willing to talk with America. We are willing to come to the table. And the reason why this worked so well is simply because Trump strong-armed gorilla them, didn't let his ego bash him down, and didn't follow the same path as the other 3 presidents before him. 3 presidents before him have all pretty much handled North Korea the same way. They go in, they try and talk peacefully, they get a little bit out of North Korea, usually something like, we're not going to do nuclear testing anymore, and then North Korea does it for about 3 to 5 years, and then they start doing it again, and then they get more money from the next president. It's a con scheme. They're constantly running us through the ringer, basically getting money from us in an effort to not develop nuclear weapons. But this isn't going to work anymore, not with somebody like Trump. And it's obvious that this is progressing in a most positive way. So I'm going to give Trump a point for this one. Now, nothing's actually occurred yet, so I'm still reserved on whether or not this is a good idea or decision. But currently as it stands, Trump's winning this fight. Good for him. We're going to move on to the most important articles of the day. 2 things that you've probably heard a little bit about one and probably nothing about the other, but are very important and things you should take into account. So let's go ahead and start with the first article, which of course is one that some people have heard of, some have not. It's kind of streaming around now. It's become a big thing. But really it's big for the wrong reasons. So it's a story about the Amazon Echo sending private conversations to a random contact, supposedly, in one of the consumer lists. Basically, if you don't know the story, I'll give you a quick rundown. A family in Oregon has an Amazon Echo. They were having a private conversation, apparently it had something to do with reflooring or hardwood floors or something of that nature. And for whatever reason, the Amazon Echo decided to record pieces of this conversation in multiple audio files and send them, like text messages, to a contact in the owner's phone. The husband of the house was the one whose contacts were linked up with the Echo, I guess, so it went to one of his contacts in particular. The biggest problem I have with this is that it sent multiple messages, and that Amazon is defending it, saying that it was a random occurrence because of a combination of word effects. Now, I'll give you Amazon's explanation, and then I'm going to move on to why I don't really feel like it holds water. Amazon's explanation basically says that the consumer started the conversation with the Amazon Echo by saying something that sounded like Alexa or whatever, on or up or whatever it was they said to turn the bloody thing on. So the device turns on, and now it's going to send a message because it heard something that sounded like send a message. It picks up audio for a set amount of time, and then apparently the device asks, who do you want to send this to, or do you want to send this to somebody? And apparently combinations of words in the conversation created this contact information, and then the Amazon Echo asks, do you want to send this message? And apparently they said something like yes, right, okay, in that nature. And so it sent the message. Now, this is a highly improbable factor. I mean, think Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy improbable. It's a little bit crazy almost. But it isn't necessarily impossible. And with how many smart devices are available in the world, it makes sense that this is probably going to occur at some point or another. Here's where the story starts to lose its hold of water. The Amazon Echo sent multiple audio messages. Not in bulk, but in separate file formats. Or not file formats, but separate files. And the reason why this is highly important is because it's not going to send multiple files for audio multiple times. It's going to send one audio file, or it's going to send multiple audio files in subsect messaging. The reason why this is important is because that means the conversation, as improbable as it was for it to happen once, they had to activate the message stream system to the same person 3 different times to send those audio messages, at least. We know there's at least 3. It may have been more. The improbability of this occurring is astronomical. I don't have an actual number for it because I'm not going to go in and do statistics, but the astronomical improbability of a conversation triggering that same event 3 times in a row to create a singular conversation and have that audio message transmitted in such a way is extraordinarily unlikely. Now, do I know what happened? No, I do not. Could it have been a software glitch? Possibly. Now, software is obviously a hugely complex thing, and I doubt it has anything to do with the hardware of the device. But the reality of it is this could insinuate that the device is listening like a spy piece in your house. And this device, according to the owners of it, is actually connected to multiple devices throughout their house. We're talking heating systems, lighting. I believe it even has a couple of functionalities with their TVs and music systems and things like that, they said. So this right here is something that's integrated into their household. They're not going to get rid of it, but now it seems like it's spying on them. So at what point are we willing to trade away that feeling of privacy for a feeling of convenience? And to me, it's just not worth it. I won't use one of these devices, basically because the convenience of not having to get up and walk over to my thermostat, or the convenience of not having to make sure my lights turn on and off at a certain time on vacation, those things are very nice, but they're not necessary, and I don't find the reason to pay for a device that could be wiretapping me the entire time for no other reason than it likes to absorb information. There's already been plenty of videos out there showing that YouTube could be using the microphone access to advertise to you. What's to say that something like an Amazon Echo isn't doing the exact same thing? It may not even be for something like, oh, we're going to spy on you to make sure you're not a terrorist. No, that may not be it. It might just be they're looking to advertise things to you to sell you more stuff because we live in a consumeristic society and we all like to make a bunch of freaking money. That could easily be the cause. Doesn't make it right, and I don't like somebody doing it. Just good to know. We're going to go ahead and move on to this last article. This is either something you either have heard about or you haven't, and if you have heard about it, you're probably a heavily techie person. Basically what it is there is a new malware/virus system that's going out into the world, and it's essentially affecting the most vulnerable system in your house, your router. If you don't know, your router does have computing capabilities in it. It does download updates. It does have software. Your router is also extraordinarily vulnerable because it's not heavily maintained with security software like a computer is. Yes, your router has some firewall systems and things like that, but it doesn't protect it against what this is doing. What this is doing is essentially locking your router and turning it into a VPN bouncer. And if you don't know what a VPN bouncer is, allow me to explain in layman's terms really quickly. If I live in New York and I want to hack my friend's computer in Oregon, and I want to make it look like it's being hacked from Seattle, what I do is I use a VPN to bounce off of somebody's computer in Seattle to Oregon to make it look like I'm hacking his computer from Seattle. I'm actually doing it from New York, but it looks like I'm doing it from Seattle. Most of the time when this kind of thing occurs, people who are good with technology, codes, and things of that nature can backtrack somebody who's hacked all the way through the line of channels, or at least a couple steps backwards, to see that it was bounced off different people's IP addresses and that it doesn't necessarily make them invisible. But this has a dual, I guess for the best way to explain it, a dual trigger effect. So one, this allows them to erase and cover up their tracks, which is tremendously nasty and highly complex as far as hacking goes. Two, it has a special system that allows them to lock down and brick the router. The reason why this is important is they can actually turn the router into essentially a piece of paperweight. It'll no longer allow access in or out from your internet, making it so one, you don't have internet, probably TV too if you're using the same router for your TV service. But two, more importantly, it makes it so other people who may or may not be using your router system to bounce off, like let's say you have a server at your house and it holds your website and your website is out on the internet, people can't access that. Okay, so essentially what it's doing is it's cutting the web. And for what I'm explaining, a lot of people think of the internet like a cloud where everything's floating around. It's more like a spider's web. You know, if you cut one line, you can still make it to the end. You just got to go a different route. It sometimes takes a little bit longer, but it's not a big deal. The reason why this is so tremendously bad is because over 500,000 routers are estimated to have been affected by this already. Now, a majority of those routers, almost all of them, are in the Ukraine. But that doesn't mean you shouldn't worry about it. This is actually a really big deal. Ukraine obviously has been at ties with Russia for quite a while. They've kind of fought back and forth for a bit. So Ukraine's first instinct is to point the finger at Russia and say, they're hacking us. And I know because of the news media, a lot of people think that Russia has this immensely sophisticated hacking group and system that is all on board and stuff like that. But for anybody who had to deal with fake news and bots during the news cycle for the 2016 election, which is most of us who are on Facebook and Twitter, you can usually spot a bot from a mile back. Let's be honest. You can usually spot a bot from a mile back. They usually have bad English. The grammar is atrocious. Their idea is usually fragmented and pieced together. And a lot of times if they are responding to comments, the response doesn't normally line up with it. Bots as a whole are pretty stupid. The Russian hacking that involved in the 2016 election was extraordinarily minimal and had almost no impact on people's opinions. And if it did have an impact on your opinion, holy crap, please explain to me how. I would love to see how it had an impact on your opinion, because so far I've met no one who's actually had an impact from it. The reason why this is important to note is because this is supposedly some of the most advanced hacking technology that Russia had. That is extraordinarily bad hacking, as they call it. I wouldn't even really call it hacking, to be honest. So that leads us to guess it wasn't really Russia. Well, it could have been another place too. There are these places out there that are making money, tons of money, off of hacking people. It started with scams way back in the day. It used to be a chain letter. You send your 20 friends, and each one of you sends $1. Some schlub back in Oklahoma, and he makes $1 million because a million schlubs decide to mail out letters and send him $1 for true happiness. Then it turned into an email scam where some Nigerian prince was going to send you a whole shipload of treasure, but all you had to do was send him $350 because of taxes that you have to pay for. Then it evolved into ransomware, which were like apps and stuff on your phones or computers that'll lock it down so you can't use it unless you pay this company a certain amount of money through some wire transfer kind of thing. Although you could get rid of it from your computer by just reinstalling the operating system. Now, who's to say they haven't upgraded and evolved, and instead of hitting people individually have decided maybe we're going to hack a whole country? I mean, think about it. If they infect a majority of a country's routers and then tell the country that we're going to hold you to ransom, if you don't give us a certain amount of money, we'll just lock down half your internet connection. Basically, everybody in your country will have to get new routers. you could really get some real money. And I always look at things from a point of money. How much money can you get from doing this? It doesn't seem like a whole lot of benefit for Russia to hack the Ukraine. It doesn't seem like a whole lot of benefit for a place like America to hack the Ukraine. But some place like Malaysia that might hold it for ransom, now that's interesting. And just because it's happening overseas doesn't mean you shouldn't be aware of it, because something like this could easily progress over into America. They could start using the virus on our routers. There's already been routers in other countries that have been spotted with this virus. It is getting out there. So you need to be careful. Apparently, the most common routers are the ones affected. Things like Netgears. Apparently, there's a couple of companies called like TP routers and stuff like that, which I'm not familiar with, that are more commonly out there. So getting an off-brand router or a more high-end router that might have a different software system or hardware base to it could easily absolve you from being in the loop of people that might be affected by this. But keep in mind, even if you personally don't lose your internet, if half of the country were to lose their internet all at one time, it would be chaos. Absolute chaos. People have become so reliant upon technology and the internet, they've forgotten what happens when shit hits the fan. So just be on the lookout. Maybe get yourself a new router. Definitely throw away that Amazon Echo, whatever other Google Home device you might have. Just toss them in the trash. Nobody wants them. Or better yet, mail them to me. I'll recycle them for you. Thank you for watching our episode today. We really appreciate you watching. We know that this is a newer thing. It's an early episode. It's definitely going to be a little more random, a little more sporadic. The comedy hasn't been fully integrated into it yet. We're going to have a lot more fun with each episode. I hope you enjoyed it. Definitely, if you haven't already, subscribe. We need subscribers. And, release that inner wolf. Really, lead America to a better tomorrow. Don't stay silent. It's important. Every time somebody has a bad opinion, they say something stupid to you, make sure you explain to them why they're stupid. Otherwise, they'll never learn. Oh, and if you don't like something I said, leave a comment down below. If you do like something I said, press the thumbs up button and leave a comment down below.